Welcome to a new episode of Out from the Horrorbox. I'm your unknowable host, Dom, and in this episode we go over some news in horror, travel across the world to find some strange encounters, and end the episode with some scary stories. Sorry everyone, once again, this episode is a little late. My job is terrible, that job that I do in real life, and had me working quite a few days straight and a bunch of hours that I don't normally work, and so it threw everything off. Hopefully you'll find it in your heart to buy me a coffee, but I never want you to pay for anything you can't afford as extra. That's why I keep the podcast free, and maybe if I can get enough listeners, I can start a Patreon, but that's only justified if I get the downloads, so please spread the word about the podcast. So, without further ado, grab a bowl of all Scaries.
This is the fucking news.
After the not very good Jurassic World Dominion, most people expected the Jurassic World franchise to be done. But recently, we had some good news that about the new installment that's in the works. Most recently, we got an update on who the director of the new film will be. It's going to be Gareth Edwards, director of 2014's Godzilla, Rogue One, and The Creator. And he'll be taking over for David Leitch, who was originally attached to direct. The new film is slated for release on July 25th, 2025, and will be a fresh take on the Jurassic Park / World universe, with no connection to the previous characters like Bryce Dallas Howard or Laura Dern or Jeff Goldblum's characters. Steven Spielberg is going to be back to produce through Amblin Entertainment, with David Leitch still attached to produce. And Universal is continuing the franchise, obviously, after 2022's Jurassic World Dominion brought in, billions at the box office, after the worldwide, release. But it was critically not well received. Also, there's been an animated series. I didn't even really know this. Jurassic World Chaos Theory is set to come out on Netflix, which is a continuation of Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, which already had a premiere, or already premiered on Netflix, so it's already on there. Kind of crazy. I didn't even know that was on there. Honestly, I think having Gareth Edwards on as the director of the new film is going to be the best move that Universal's made with the franchise since they brought it back. I mean, yeah, Bryce Dallas Howard, okay. Bringing back Laura Dern and the original, the core three, awesome, but you kind of dropped the ball with Jurassic World was fine. I think Fallen Kingdom could have been way better if you let them kill off all the dinosaurs at the very end. There's a point at the end of that one where, the little girls, you can't kill them, they're like me, and then they set them free, and it's like, no, you should have killed them. You should have killed them all. That would have made it for a sadder movie. And then the Dominion, the one that just came out, the last one, oh boy, that one was not that good. But getting back to Edwards, he has the sense of scale in his films that honestly are not matched by any directors really that I've seen, and I think we'll be able to give us back this kind of sense of wonder at seeing these massive animals that we have either lost or not seen since Jurassic Park, the original one. And the sense of scale thing is what I'm talking about. Is in Godzilla, you get a feeling of being oh yeah, you're a person here seeing this massive thing. And you get that too in Rogue One. There's parts where when they're on Scaries and the AT-ATs are walking around on the planet, and you get this kind of just sense of they're these massive things that are there, and you get that in The Creator too. And you kind of see with the newer Godzilla that's going to come out, Godzilla X Kong, the new empire. It's like they're these big, massive creatures still, but like I don't know, you don't get that feeling of like the weight and of these massive beings. I think he does that really well in his films. So honestly, cannot wait to see how he does, if he stays attached, because there's been a lot of people coming onto projects and leaving projects, so hopefully it's pretty good. Back in 2022, TerraVision Games announced that they were developing an asymmetrical multiplayer game that's based on the cult classic film Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Last year, in 2023, after not really getting an update on the game or a release date, we were finally given an update about how the original publisher, Good Shepherd Entertainment, was departing the development, and Elphonic was taking over publishing, and they kind of gave a rough time of 2024 as like a release time. I think originally it was supposed to come out last year, and then they pushed it back to this year without really saying an exact time frame. And it's just kind of crazy because it's 36 years of waiting for some kind of continuation of the series, and we'll finally have an expansion of the Killer Klowns lore / story, and it's going to involve the Kyoto brothers, the original creators, as they're being heavily involved in the game. But just recently, as part of IGN's Fan Fest, Elphonic provided a new trailer and gave us the release date of June 4th, 2024, along with a confirmation that the game will be available on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. And from the trailer, which honestly I highly recommend you watch if you're into Killer Klowns and all that, it's pretty good. We learn more about the gameplay and objectives of the game. The game is 3v7 asymmetrical multiplayer horror game, similar to Friday the 13th game, with 7 human players and 3 players as the clowns. And here's a quote about the game from IGN. When murderous alien clowns come to feed on the quiet town of Crescent Cove, the locals must work together to fight back and survive the invasion. Players can team up as either clowns or humans, choosing from a variety of character classes, to explore an expansive, ever-changing map with creepy surprises waiting around every corner. Take on the role of the iconic Killer Klowns. Cooperate in a team of 3 players. Utilize unworldly abilities. Hunt humans with zany weapons. And plan your alien invasion to harvest the population of Crescent Cove successfully. Fight back as a team of 7 brave citizens of Crescent Cove. Explore the city for valuable loot and weapons. Avoid getting captured by clowns. And try to survive the alien invasion. And really from the gameplay that I saw, and just kind of filling it out, it does kind of seem a little creepy, being the humans, trying to avoid getting captured by the clowns. So I think I'm going to try and play the clowns. I like all the weapons that they have. I don't know if I like the whole sneaking around and trying not to run into something kind of scary kind of thing. Sure, you can call me a chicken all you want, but I'd rather play as the clowns and not have to be scared of something popping out at me. One thing is that the pre-ordering bonuses are pretty good. You can pre-order now. I think they already started that. I want to pre-order it too, but I think it might be for PS5. I have a PS4 right now, but I want a PS5 so bad. They include clown characters Bibbo and Slim, along with cosmetics for the humans and jumpsuit costumes for the clowns. And then the pre-order edition, the regular pre-order edition, includes a week advance access to human cosmetics, a clown skin, and a clown character. Included in the deluxe upgrade for pre-order are 2 human characters, which are Mike and Debbie, which is pretty cool. That's from the original film. 2 clown skins, and a movie clown skin, which is going to be the Bippo. So I wonder if maybe the clown character for just the regular one is Slim, I don't know. The digital soundtrack and digital art book, and I'd like to get those, the digital soundtrack and the digital art book. That'd be pretty cool. I know, like, on the Blu-ray I have, which was re-released or released by Arrow, I love, like, the special features that they have on there. You can go back and watch all, like, the some I think there's only like a couple deleted scenes, and then there's like just a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that you get to see, like them practicing as the clowns, just some of the art that they drew for it, set designs and stuff. It's crazy. It's like pretty good investment that I got this. But the game sounds pretty good. It's pretty creepy. Like I said, if you're playing as the humans, pretty creepy. Like, just imagine seeing like a clown like that from the movie, like in real life. Like, I'm just like, you guys design these things like too well. Like, they are like the creepiest things. Hopefully I'll never have to run into that in real life and be so just scared out of my mind. But yeah, I really want to play Killer Klowns from Outer Space, the game. I've been waiting for a while now. Love the film. Love to just add it to my collection of like Killer Clown stuff. But yeah, this is gonna be a good game. So just a while back, legendary horror novelist Stephen King took to Twitter to tell people that the new Salem's Lot is quite good. King also shared that he is not sure why Warner Brothers is holding it back. Not like it's embarrassing or anything. Who knows? I just write the fucking things. Obviously, King is frustrated just as the fans who have been waiting for any update on whether or not Warner Brothers is going to release the film to theaters. Or they're going to stream it on Max, or if they'll continue to do what they've been doing under David Zaslav, destroying the film and writing it off for tax purposes. The author's tweet also reminds us that this most recent adaptation was finished years ago. It was shot back in 2021, and Salem's Lot was originally supposed to be scheduled for a September 9th, 2022 release date. The date was then pushed back to April 21st of 2023. The last update we got from Warner Brothers was them considering sending it straight to Max, but they did not give us a time frame, and this has caused many fans to grow increasingly concerned that it might fall victim to another tax write-off. Salem's Lot has had two television adaptations, one in 1979 and one in 2004, and this version would have been the first time the story got a big screen release. Also, this is considered one of Stephen King's most beloved novels and is integral to King's magnum opus, The Dark Tower, and the refusal to let audiences see it seems like a little weird of a call to me. Like, not only are the movies that are based on Stephen King's books always in high demand, but there's also a rabid fan base already in place for this specific novel. So, Salem's Lot, obviously directed and adapted for the screen by Gary Dauberman. The film was based on, obviously, the novel of the same name. It stars Louis Pullman, Mackenzie Lee, Bill Camp, Alfred Woodard, and William Sadler. And it's just remarkable to me that we're in this situation once again where Warner Brothers is, just holding a film ransom, and eventually I bet what they're going to do is just push it off to be just another tax write-off, and it's getting ridiculous, and I don't know how much longer people are going to stand around for this. Ever since the Discovery merged with Warner Brothers and they changed everything from HBO Max to Max, and they've been everything that HBO had been doing before. Basically, they started like, let's kind of put that off so we can push all this other stuff on people, and like, how can we make more money by writing this off? It's ridiculous. It's getting me very upset. Especially because, like, I love the novel. The novel is great. I'd love to see it adapted and see how they do it, because I haven't seen the original one. I've seen some of the 2004 one, but I have seen like photos from the original one. And they're like pretty crazy, and I've seen like clips from it. But I just want to see this adapted because, like I said, it is integral to the Dark Tower series. For anyone who's read that, will understand and have read Salem's Lot. It's just kind of crazy that you would, like, and like I said before, like with it or with The Mist, or The Mist didn't do like crazy numbers, but like it still did pretty decently. We recently had like a slew of like Hulu's with Castle Rock and with 11/22/63. We've had other adaptations of his works that like his short stories and stuff, and they constantly are just like they're bringing in people because he's a well-known author. He's known to do a lot of scary stuff. I just don't understand why like you wouldn't be like, man, let's release this now. Like if it's been done for this long, I feel like they're just gonna keep holding on to it to be like, oh well, now it's too late to release. Guess we just gotta write it off. And I hate David Zaslav. It's infuriating. Really, really infuriating to hear that that's the state of these companies and studios, and they're just looking to try and get back as much money as they can, and it's ridiculous. It shouldn't be about this. It should be about creating what like I've said, entertainment and art, and it's ridiculous that like all they see is the profit. All they see is how do we squeeze every last dollar out of this, instead of being like, you could make all the money, all that money back and more. But whatever. It's infuriating. Hopefully with enough pushback, maybe they'll release it. But we all got to keep speaking up, guys. And I'm talking about it. It's ridiculous. Over the centuries, man has looked up to the stars and wondered what exactly was out beyond the atmosphere. The heavens held celestial beings, the spirits of the dead, or the kingdom for the gods. But as with knowledge comes truth that those things in space are planets, stars, moons, and still more unknowns. Scouring the internet for all things creepy, scary, or horrifying, I found a great subreddit called R Humanoid Encounters. I found a few posts about different sightings of UFOs and beings of unknown origin. I'm going to read these encounters and discuss them after each one. What all these incidents have in common are the country of origin, Italy. Each one happened in a different part of Italy, as well as a different point in time. I will do my best to pronounce the names of the people or the cities as best I can. I only know like a small amount of Spanish, and probably not even enough to get a sense of Italian, so forgive me. Come along with me as we look into these strange encounters. Man flying in a box. In 1974, Castelli, Italy, at 5:30 p.m., the witness, a woman named Signorina Giovanna Sensoli, was attending to the animals in the farmyard beside the house when she was struck by their strange behavior. The chickens and rabbits were running about as though terrified and hiding in any corner they could find. She looked around to see what was going on and noticed some of the fowls were looking upwards. She instinctively did the same thing, and to her great astonishment, saw hanging in the air above the house at rooftop height, at about 4 meters from her, a quote-unquote man who was seated on a box that was swinging to and fro and was looking around as though seeking something. He was big, about 2 meters in height, and dressed in very shiny one-piece garment with green, red, and white markings, and in a pair of ski boots with square toes and square heels. His features seemed to be dark, with a helmet and a visor covering his face. I only managed to see his eyes more or less like ours, and to tell you the truth, we gazed at one another for a brief instant. Well, this man was hanging there in the air above the house and rocking to and fro, with one foot stretched down towards the roof, as though he wanted to support himself on it. From the box, which was about 50 centimeters deep and about the same width, she doesn't say how long, because she wasn't sure, there was a rod sticking up, a rod with colored stripes. It must have been the control handle for the motor. It gave out a sharp hum that I could hear very clearly. A bit disconcerted at the sight, I shouted several times to my mother, but she didn't reply at once. Meanwhile, maybe because of my shouts, the man had moved away slowly eastwards, across our threshing floor area, which is 20 meters wide. I went over in the same direction to which the man was looking. I saw a very vivid light, as big as the full moon, coming from the north, and also slowly moving eastward. As soon as I caught sight of it, I was overcome by a wave of heat, and although there was a bit of mist at the time, the whole place around the house and the thresher floor were lit up vividly for a few seconds like a bright daylight. After passing across the threshing floor area, the man halted above a flat-topped hayrick, as though going to land on it. I approached him once more, puzzled by his incomprehensible gestures, and once more were staring at one another, this time at a distance of about 3 meters. A few instances later, he departed, heading eastwards with the light following at a distance behind him. It took over about a kilometer or so in that direction lays the small cemetery of San Clemente, located on a hill. I watched the two objects, the man in the light circle, several times around the cemetery, and halt for a few seconds over it. Meanwhile, my mother had finally come out, and I showed her where to look, but she, not knowing what had happened, simply said, "It must be a parachutist." She was merely able to make out something in the distance, but unfortunately without being able to discern any actual details that might confirm my testimony. I did not see the light again, but the man must surely have dropped down into the cemetery and spent the night there. The whole thing lasted about 15 minutes. And that was the end of the encounter, and just kind of strange, right? Like this person, or you're out on like your land, right? Obviously this is 1974, so it's more that area. I'm not sure how it is today. Maybe it's still rural, maybe, but back then more likely, obviously from the way she's talking, it is a more rural area. And you look up above the house and there's this person in a box just sitting there, going back and forth, and just sounds like, at least it wasn't something more, malevolent, something that was like trying to get her or grab her or something, or, to abduct her or something. And the fact that, like the mom said, maybe it was, someone parachuting and you're just not understanding what they're doing. But then how do you explain like the light that followed them, right? That like was following after them. And then she said that it was in like a box. He's like sitting in a box of some sort with like a rod that she said must have been like the control handle because it was making a hum. So obviously it was some kind of machine or something. It had like something in it that was making a hum. Maybe like a balloon. Maybe she mistook somebody who's in a hot air balloon, and like I'm not sure about like the handle, but I guess like why, like I feel like you could understand even like if you're in a rural area like that, like what a balloon is, like someone who's a balloonist, right? That's kind of strange, very weird. Let's move on to the next encounter. Floating humanoid. San Piero Asiev in Florence, Italy, in September or October 1989. Two elderly farmers from the Florentine countryside one morning reported seeing a dark sphere descend silently over the field like a breath, quote unquote. From the sphere came a being dressed in a black-colored jumpsuit. The being had long, dark hair and huge red eyes, which frightened the farmers and their dog. He also seemed to be wearing some helmet, or perhaps the large eyes were of some visor. This incident was repeated 4 other times, always in the same field. The farmers nicknamed the being as the Fishman because the individual did not walk but floated in the area, moving like a fish in the water. Although astonished as they did not speak about their experiences, only to a few trusted people. One day, one of the farmers got very angry because this time the black sphere had landed in the field, crushing the ears of wheat, totally ruining them. Armed with a pitchfork, the farmer approached the sphere and the flying creature in a threatening manner. The man, however, was unable to get too close because the flying being fired a beam of light from his eyes at the poor farmer, paralyzing him completely. At the same time, the farmer's terrified wife screamed, "Come back, otherwise this will kill us. Let's run away." Luckily for them, the being actually re-entered his craft, which this time he left making a loud noise. At first, the farmers thought the being was having problems with his craft and actually approached to help. However, the being shouted at them, "Don't come near, because I will burn you." That's very weird. It's very strange. And it's crazy that it happened over the course of a couple days, I guess, or months, apparently. So the way I'm reading this is that September to October in that year is when it kept happening, that this person who was floating, and it looked like they were swimming as they moved through the air, and they had like a black sphere with them, like spherical, UFO, UAP, whatever you want to call it, some kind of craft with it, and like he fired a beam at the guy, the farmer, and then like he was like, "I'm getting out of here, guys," and he left. But like as he was trying to get back into his craft, it looked like he needed help, and then he like says like, "Don't come near to it. It'll burn you." So what does that mean? Like, what is it made of? Something? Does it have some kind of like field around it that's going to cause like what? Like, is it using some kind of like energy that we're not used to, or is it using an energy that we know of, like more like nuclear, and it's like that's why it'll burn or something? Man, that's so strange. When you hear, and what they said is that like they didn't talk about this to everybody. They only told us to like a few people that they trusted. And see, to me that always seems a little bit more credible to me, because you're not going around like trying to tell everybody like, "Hey, I got the story. Like, oh, you guys got to come out to the field because there's this fish man there." No, he doesn't look like a fish. It's because he's floating in the air and the way he moves is like a fish in water. I'm not crazy. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that sounds a little bit more credible when you're like, you're so unsure and so frightened of what you saw that you don't want to tell anybody. I don't know. It's always pretty creepy. Green Alien. Emilia Romagna, Italy, 1962, at 9:45 p.m. The young Antonio Candau, after finishing his job as a driver, went to a cinema on the afternoon of December 9th, 1962, to spend a few hours relaxing. But when he did not like the movie, he went out and decided to take a walk. Around 9:45 p.m., while walking along a tree-lined avenue, he clearly heard a whistle. He looked around and saw to his left, in the direction of an adjacent park, a flying object in the shape of a deep dish with a dome on top. Kendall, scared, hid behind a tree to observe the situation. Then suddenly he saw a door open on the side of the object, from which two individuals emerged whose appearance was similar to that of humans. Approximately 1 meter and 70 meters tall, they had normal features apart from the decidedly olive skin color. Their eyes seemed to shine like those of cats at night. Their hair was shiny, short, and dark. They wore a very tight jumpsuit, like that of a yellow divers, with a dark belt and rectangular box on the hips. The two moved in sync, and once they noticed Kendall, one of them pointed at him with his arm outstretched and index finger pointing, saying incomprehensible words that couldn't be traced back to English, French, or Russian. The witness had the impression that he had been asked a question, to which, however, he did not respond. Suddenly, as if called by an order, the two looked at each other, turned, and still in unison, climbed the object's ladder, disappearing inside. The object rose about 100 meters and then, with the same hiss, moved away to the southwest. See, and then here's my thing too, with like these encounters and like when people in other countries are seeing this stuff, like, because you can always explain things. Because I live in America, for those of you who don't already kind of understand that, especially here in Arizona, like a lot of what you could probably say over the years. For some unidentified stuff could be maybe, we have a lot of military bases around here, and the Southwest region in general has a lot of military bases. So what you could probably say is that a lot of what we're seeing is just experimental craft that the government hasn't, told us about. Like they're just, a lot of like the silent helicopters they use in the raid. With Bin Laden. Oh no, yeah, Bin Laden. Like some of those things could have been things that they were used, or even like drones. They could have been testing them here for years, and we just didn't know that they were drones. And that's why we were thinking like, oh, it's some kind of spacecraft, some kind of alien, some kind of unidentified flying object. But when I hear it from like other countries, and they start, and especially like in 1962 in Italy, in like this like random park, there's this like deep dish shaped object with a dome on top, and these two people that are just in these kind of jumpsuits that are acting very robotic. It's like, okay, so how do you explain that? Like, is Italy also trying to, and if they are, like, are they more advanced than we are? Like, how more advanced are they? Are we sharing the technology with them? Is it, or, because it sounds very like, why would we be? If we're developing it in secret, why are we sharing with some of these people or some of these countries? And then the fact that like the language can't be traced back to English, French, or Russian, but like that doesn't exclude every language. That's just the language he probably is like, the languages he's familiar with, and it could be something more from like maybe, I don't know, maybe it's like some Asian language, maybe something from, like South America, something from, Africa. But it's still, see, like that's where it gets kind of like, see, you can't always give an explanation for these things from like just saying, oh, it's the government experimenting with spacecrafts, because like how do you explain that then? Like, it's not our country, and yet these things are still showing up. And you could, like I said, you could say it's their country experimenting, but then, like, at what point are we going to draw the line at being like, how far more advanced are they than we are? And then, because, like, do they spend that much money, right? Like, on their military like we do? It's just crazy. It's kind of crazy to me to think that, like, all these things are the same explanation you can give, right? Cute alien. Sunday, June 20th, 1993, around 5:30 p.m., while 5 people were quietly seated around a table in Chusea, in the municipality of Pederan, a strange ball appeared in the sky. One of them, Mr. Giuseppe Zitella, an ex-non-commissioned officer of the Air Force, thought it looked like a balloon of the type sold at fairs. The thing landed near a row of poplars near a field. Zitella approached with the intention of taking it as a gift to his grandson, but he soon realized that it wasn't a balloon. But it seemed to be some kind of animated thing. Its color was brown with light streaks, between 6 and 80 centimeters. It had a circular head and a bit larger than the human one, with 2 shiny black eyes covered with a sort of plastic mask. On its head, it had a white antenna about 10 to 15 centimeters long. At the bottom, under the head, had 2 legs, quote unquote, without feet, with 2 marks or pockets in the shape of a V or U on its knees. The whole body as a whole was similar to something synthetic. Zitella came close to the being, and after having looked at it, the being moved away and then disappeared, taking off at incredible speed, leaving all witnesses astonished. So this is kind of crazy too. Like, there's multiple people, right? I mean, obviously he saw it more up close and was able to describe what it was, but other people saw this object or thing or being out there in the field, and then the fact that it just took off incredible speed, and like just left them there just sitting and wondering. It sounds ridiculous, but like this is things that like happened before. We've seen like other creatures like this before, that they'll do this, they'll just scurry off and never be seen again. And the way it's described kind of reminds me of a little like the Dig Dug character from the like arcade game. I don't know, just it seems weird. Bizarre encounter. The night of June 25th into the morning of the 26th, in 1962 in Verona, Italy, was truly traumatic for Mrs. Perugozzo and her 2 children, Luisa and Roberto. It all started around 1 in the morning when Luisa saw a bright white discoid object in the sky. The observation continued until around 2 a.m. when the 3 decided to go to bed. After about an hour, Luisa woke up with a distinct sensation of feeling an annoying presence in the room. A freezing cold filled the entire room, making her teeth chatter. She opened her eyes and saw a greenish, fluctuating light that filled the entire room. A few steps from the bed was the blurred silhouette of a monstrous, semi-transparent human figure. He had very thick arms and legs. His height was around 2 meters. The being extended out 2 large, chubby hands towards the girl as if to grab her. It looked huge. Although it had no features, it was like shaven. Luisa felt she was being observed by a horrible gaze. The being touched the face of Luisa with its hands, and then she screamed at the top of her lungs, thus waking up her mother, who, however, upon seeing the being, fell backwards, and she passed out. At that moment, the figure began to retreat towards the window, shrinking until it was reduced to a small green dot, like that of an old television when they're turned off. Meanwhile, Roberta, awakened by the screams, also ran towards the room, being able to see the green dot and noticing the low temperature present in the room. And it must be said that after 2 months, the family was again the subject of these visits. So what is this? Like, it's just something, like, did it come from the light that they saw earlier? How did it get into the room? Why is it just standing there? Why is it going towards her? Why did it freak out and then shrink? Like, why did it shrink down? And, like, what? They're able to shrink, whatever these are? And the fact that, like, the brother saw the little green dot of whatever it was, but the mom saw it before, and that's when she passed out from seeing whatever it was. So it's just kind of creepy. And then the fact that they were visited multiple times by these things, just all around, like, weird and strange. And, like, how do you explain that? Like, you can maybe, like, okay, somebody broke in, but then how do you explain it shrunk like that? And that for her brother to see it tiny there, too. Just so weird. Like, things that, like, happen with, like, all this stuff. Just kind of crazy. Just so, like, it's scary. Like, it just broke into their house. And what's it there for? Like, what was she going to abduct her? Was it going to try and communicate at some point? It's so weird. Just, like, what is it going to do? What was it going to do? That's to me, that's the main concern I have. Like, what do they want? What does it want? Like, if it needed something specific, why doesn't it try communicating if it's actually there? Just so strange to me. Encounters with UFOs and the unknown beings have happened throughout history. What makes one area more susceptible to those encounters over any other? Are people seeing exactly what they're reporting? Could these all have rational explanations? Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. There are multiple sides to every story, and even if the explanation is something mundane, there are so many things out there that we still don't know and will remain unknown. So remember to keep your eyes open and check every shadow. Time for some scary stories. I've always loved it when my family and friends get together to tell each other their creepiest tales. So let's get into some of the internet's scariest stories. Our first story is called Insomnia. My wife, girlfriend at the time, was sleeping over at my house. I was dealing with a bit of insomnia at the time, so I was lying awake in the middle of the night when I heard something fall from my computer desk. For whatever reason, it scared me enough to hide under my blanket. Then all of a sudden I hear your typical horror movie heavy breathing right in front of my face outside of my blanket. I'm pretty much frozen in fear listening to this breathing noise, circling the bed, sort of. My wife starts to toss a little bit and then rips her blanket off to get up to use the restroom. She shuffles towards the end of the bed to get down, and next thing I know, she screams with so much terror and instantly starts to cry, saying there's a little girl sitting on the floor at the end of our bed. My next move was I stood up on the bed and jumped off probably as far as I can make it towards the light switch. I asked what the hell she saw, and she just described seeing a little girl in the fetal position looking fairly distressed look up at her when she was getting off the bed. I told her I heard breathing outside my blanket right before she saw it, sorry. So needless to say, the light stayed on the rest of the night. Yeah, I'd be creeped the hell out if I just saw like a little girl just in my room in like the fetal position, right? And also like that he like jumped out of his bed just to turn on the light, and that they kept the light on all night. And then like hearing that breathing, that would just like freak me out. Just freak me the fuck out. It's just like, just imagine like you waking up and and then like you just instantly hide under your blanket because it's just like this heavy breathing, and like that would freak me out. I'd be like, go away, please. Just creep me out. It's creepy. The next tale is called Crawling. When I was a preteen / young teenager, my family moved into a house. It started with hearing footsteps in the attic, which wasn't tall enough for anyone to walk around in. We attributed it to rats, but it made my grandmother so uncomfortable enough that she stopped visiting. We started seeing things, a woman peeking around the corners, a little boy running around, and the shadow of a man at the end of the hallway. My dad's bedroom was across the hall from my brother's room, and I often slept in there. Me and two of my brothers were watching a movie one night when I saw a man crawling on his hands and knees into the room. I thought it was my dad, who often did things like this to scare us. I gave the signal that I saw him and went back to watching the movie, expecting him to grab my little brother's foot who was sleeping next to me. Then he opened his door, flooding the hallway with light. There was no one there. I've never been so terrified. And yeah, that would terrify the fuck out of me. Like, when you're seeing a lady, a little kid, a man at the end of the hallway, then you see that, something just crawl across like the hallway, and then you're waiting for it, and then someone comes in and the light shines and there's nothing there. That would freak me out too. That reminds me of a story of like when my mom and dad they moved into my dad's parents' house, and one night they were watching a movie, or they were watching something on the TV or whatever, and they had all the lights off. But from the front door, you walk across, it's just like a little like sitting area, and then it moves, and if you go straight through, you go into like there's a bathroom, and then off to the right there's a bedroom. Off to the left. But my mom if you go from the front door, and you go right, that leads into like the living room and the kitchen and everything. So they're sitting in the living room, and she looks over and she sees this like person walk from the front door straight to the bathroom. And if both of them saw it, and they both freaked out. And that's all. I mean, like, that's all that happened, but like it's kind of creepy just like to see like this kind of shadow figure just like move, and you're just like, okay, it's time for bed. Walgreens photo desk. Years ago, I worked at Walgreens photo desk. A lady came in one day with an old black and white photo of her as a child. She said she used to tell her mom there were devils in the trees around her house, and her mom thought she had a wild imagination and was making stuff up. She then showed me the photo of her taken in the 60s with a white dress and a pretty smile on what looked like a sunny day. But WTF is that in the trees? It looked like a demon face, or demon faces all over and around the trees, on the bark, in the branches. Worst case of pareidolia I've ever had. She wanted to make an enlarged copy and said she would give it to her mom to prove she wasn't crazy. And that photo still haunts me. Here's a follow-up reply that same person posted. If I recall correctly, she grew up in the Arkansas Delta, probably near the Memphis, Tennessee metro area, because that's where I live, or the person lived. It's hard to describe the photo other than it was an old original photo, and with the tree bark and the tree scars were there. The ones trimmed, like where the tree was trimmed, and even the tree branches against the backdrop of the sky had eerie-looking faces, elongated, devilish-looking faces that seemed like some were peeking out from behind the tree. Ooh. And it was all over the photo. It was weirdly unnatural, and that's the only way to explain it. The lady was a frequent customer, and she seemed hesitant to tell me about the photo, saying she didn't want me to think she was crazy. She said she was a girl and she hated playing out in the backyard because those devils would be all around her from every angle, staring at her, and no one believed her. She didn't like going to her parents' house even as an adult because she could still see still see the faces in the trees. And this lady was in her 50s and still seemed traumatized by this. When she handed me the photo, I was unnerved by it, for sure, because it's not something you see every day. It's even crazier when you have photographic evidence, right, of these things that you're seeing, and you're telling people, and you're like, hey, I'm seeing these things outside, and they're scaring me, and even me as a 50-year-old, I'm still seeing these things out here. They're still looking at me, and like this, here's the evidence, and like the fact that she was hesitant to even bring this photo in to get it blown up because she wants to be able to show someone else. I think to me lends it a little bit more of truth, because it's that kind of thing like we talked about earlier where people hesitant to talk about things, I feel like, are more trustworthy. I guess, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like when people don't want to talk about these things and they're reluctant to, and then they're like, well, this is what I saw and this is but like, I know it sounds crazy and this sounds ridiculous, but I mean, she had proof. She literally had a photo that showed, and yeah, you could say like the poster said, could be pareidolia. Completely, I 100% agree. That's probably what it is. But you never, I mean, you don't know. Like, why does it look like this though specifically after she's saying this, right? I don't know. Just another one of those things where it's like very strange, very creepy. Ugh, gives you like the shivers. Grandma's Voice, Part 1. My next door neighbor growing up was a friend of mine, and we had a kind of hangout spot in the patch of woods that ran behind our houses. We were about 14 and were experimenting with cigarettes, so that's where we went to hide. We were out there one day towards sunset and heard her grandmother calling to us. We panicked and put our cigarettes out so we wouldn't get caught, and she called our names again. Her voice sounded closer this time. That's when we realized that A, her grandmother lived at least 3 hours away, and to our knowledge was not expected for a visit. And B, the voice was coming from deeper into the woods, not from our backyards. We freaked and dashed out of the woods to the safety of our yards, and as we ran, we heard her call out one last time, but her voice sounded different this time, kind of deeper and angry sounding. We did not enter those woods ever again, unless it was broad daylight, but we never heard anything like that again. Scariest experience of my life. And I'm going to go straight into this next one, because this is the Grandma's Voice Part 2, and this is a reply to that previous story. My children, when they were little, they were having a sleepover at my mom and stepdad's house, and their house backs onto some woodland. My daughter and youngest son were playing in the garden that evening, and they heard my mom call them from the woods. They were about to go, but my daughter said she stopped her brother because she said that there was something off about how the voice sounded. Although she said that it did sound exactly like my mom, she said something felt different about it. She also thought it was strange that my mom would be standing in the woods in the dark calling them. They went into the house to ask my stepdad where my mom was, and my mom was upstairs. Whoever or whatever that was sounded exactly like my mom, and it was calling their names. It's a very small and quiet village, and it's pretty cut off from other towns, as it's surrounded mostly by woodland. Yeah, that's just another one of those creepy things. And to me, this kind of sounds like what you hear with like fae and like the fairies and things of that nature, like of like, you know, like brownies and gnomes and things like that. I don't know if all of them do that, but certain fae do that, where they'll call your name or something in the woods to entice you further, or even like the shadow people in the woods or something. They'll entice you further in and try and get you into a place where they can then take you away, right? That's just so creepy though. That like it sounds exactly like them. Until then, like like in the first story, like they leave and then it like starts getting mad and angry because you're not deeper and because you're not following it. And then the second one where she's like the grandma's inside the house. Like you can't fool them because like she's like like logically like why would she just be in the woods like that? Creepy. Just so that to me is even creepier because it's like why does it sound like someone you know, right? And our last tale is called Not My Friend. I lived in a trailer in a town of 3,000 people when this happened. A friend had come over for the night and left the day that this happened. My fiance worked nights, usually 1 to 9, so I was home alone most nights. Around 2 in the morning, I heard knocking on the door. I looked through the window to see who it was. I saw the same friend who left that day standing there, soaked from the rain. I didn't open the door because something seemed off. I tried talking to him, asking if everything was all right, how he got there, why he was there. I got no response, just a blank stare. After a few minutes, I gave up and went to sleep. I don't even know what time I woke up, but I woke up to the police knocking. Apparently, my neighbors saw my friend scratching at the door, trying to get in. I just thought I was hallucinating, but apparently not. Other than that, I would hear footsteps throughout the trailer and objects would move by themselves. I moved not long after that and haven't heard anything like that happen yet. So then what was it, right? Like, what was it? Someone that looked like their friend? And then, like, but like if it is your friend, like, why are they scratching at your door? Like, why aren't they responding to you? And then I wonder, like, did they ever go, like, talk to their friend and be like, hey, did you actually go, was this you? Were you there? And if not, then, like, who was this? What was this? Man, there's just some very creepy things out there. And right now, I'm sitting in my room at night, and I'm like, ooh, creeping myself out by reading these. That's like the perfect time to listen to this or read scary stories, because then you like just creep yourself out and you're like, no, oh my god, I'm so scared. Creepy. So, are you going to play the new Killer Clowns game? Have you had a strange encounter? Should David Zaslav be forced to quit so we can finally have the Batgirl, the Wile E. Coyote movie, and Salem's Lot films that we've been asking for? Probably. We want to thank you all for listening, and if you like what you hear, please subscribe to get every new episode downloaded. I want to say thank you all for sticking around and waiting on this very late episode. I'm so sorry, guys. As I tried to say in at the beginning of this episode, my job is terrible. They sometimes will just schedule me ridiculous times where if I don't get to choose it, like, it's just very hard to do this podcast. So that's why I'm kind of behind on it right now. I was trying to get ahead of myself, but hopefully I'll be able to stay ahead of myself. And, you know, like I always say, like, the more people who listen, the more people who engage with me and like, let me know, like, what they want to hear, what you want to hear, give me more stories, you know, things to review. You know, not only the more content I can give you guys, but, like, the more I can, like, take the time to do this. But, getting back to this, do you have any personal or fictional or paranormal, supernatural, or unexplained stories? We love to read that on the podcast. Please send your stories, recommendations, or anything else to horrorboxpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to show some more support, you can follow us on our socials on Instagram, Threads, or TikTok at Horrorbox Podcast. Also, you can buy me a coffee at coffee.com/horrorboxpodcast, and that would really help out. We'll see you next time and hear what comes out from the Horror Box.